All right, here's the big question we're going to start out with real quickly. Here's the big question. If I asked everybody in this audience, what's the greatest resource at Costco, what would you say? It's unanimous. I even have a manual up here that talks about people. Okay, I got a manual. I'll talk about that in a second. The second question I'm going to ask you, if the people are your greatest resource, what's the greatest resource of your people? It's a tough question, isn't it? But it's obvious because it is your health. But if you think about this, you're just talking about this, but I find more and more organizations don't look at health as a business strategy. That's why we wrote Capacity. We'll get to it when we can. You influence so many people, but it's a strategy for performance. You can talk about healthcare costs all day long. That's going to move up. But if you're not using those services, we can make them more efficient. We can cut the costs down, but that's not the problem. We're using them too much. We got to get on the upstream, not the downstream, and that's the key. So when I was talking to Jen and Patrick, I said, okay, you love Costco. It's all about people. You have the highest quality. I get that. Amazing. I shop there on a consistent basis. But I said to them, okay, so what's the challenges you face? And they all said the same thing. I don't feel like I have a lot of work-life balance. It's a big, demanding role. Number two, I feel like our stress is an all-time high. Number three, I don't have a lot of energy. Sometimes I don't sleep very good. It was the same common theme, and that's what I hear over and over for every organization is this. So if you ask the definition of what is capacity, it's potential. That's it. LeBron James spends $1.5 million a year to prove his physical capacity. Djokovic just won Wimbledon. He just came off shoulder surgery. What did he do? He had to build his capacity up. So again, when you think about this, the capacity is the potential to do more, to have more, and most importantly, to give more. And that's what you're all about. But if you don't have that capacity, you're not leading into your potential. So if you think about this at the very beginning, you ask the question, how many like to get a better night's sleep? You talk about behavior change. I think we all struggle with sleep. It's the number one growing medication in the United States. It's one of the fastest growing medications on the planet. So we're not sleeping as a society. How many like to have better energy on a consistent basis? So you think about how many of you like to be off a couple of your medications, or maybe be medicated free, or maybe you have that juice, that more fitness that you've never had before, you want to get back. That's step number one. Number two, you have to have a purpose. You've heard me talk about this before last time. This is my family. I now have 2 grandkids. Both my children, not children anymore, they're 32, I'm 61. These things are happening over time. But this is a purpose for me. We just spent 2 weeks up in northern Michigan, spending time with the family. I want to be those same kind of grandparents for my kids' kids. And you have these same desires in your families. If I ask everybody in this audience, how much does it cost to climb Mount Everest, what would you say? Here's the answer. It's $75,000. But that's not really the right answer. Here's the right answer. It's going to cost you financially about $700,000. And it's not going to take you 6 months. It's going to take you 5 years. Because people are not ready to climb Mount Everest. But they think, oh, it's going to be cool. I'm going to go climb Mount Everest, tell a story. When in reality, they needed to climb multiple mountains before that. So as we move into this, don't try to climb Mount Everest when you leave this conference. Pick 1 or 2 things and you build on it, and you build on it, and you build on it. That's the magic here. Because I'll keep coming back to this over time. If you listen to our podcast, I talk about climbing Mount Everest all the time. You know, Chris, I don't work out. I'm going to start working out 60 minutes, 6 days a week. How long is that going to last? You know, I'm only going to eat in the center of that food target. Oh, that's going to be a lot of fun. That's going to work for you. I'm going to start meditating tomorrow. Oh, you sure you will, right? So that's what I want to make sure you understand is, number one, focus on what you want. What's the purpose or the why behind it? And then climb one mountain at a time. Because if you think about it, the problems are this. How many of you feel like your demands are going down in your business? They're not. They're going up. But your capacity is shrinking. So when you think about that over time now, in corporate America, everybody's having these demands. We're asked to do more with less. So our demands basically are going up and our capacity is shrinking. So imagine if you had a 16-ounce glass that you only had 16 ounces in there and you're asked to put more in that, it's going to overflow. But imagine if you had a huge bucket, this capacity to do more, give more, all that kind of stuff. That's the key here. Because for the first time in the history of the human race, Our technology is outracing our capacity. We have this amazing supercomputer in our pocket that distracts us every second of the day. So for the first time, our physical capacity is not keeping up with our technology. Technology is amazing, but technology shouldn't be running you. You should be running technology. We all need this technology.
All right, girls. Now, this is your last chance. If one piece of candy gets past you and into the packing room unwrapped, you're fired.
Yes, ma'am.
Let her roll!
Listen, Ethel, I think this... I think we're fighting a losing game. Here she comes.
Fine, you're doing splendidly. Speed it up!
So that's the first problem we're facing, is that our capacity is shrinking. Number two is stress. If you really look at it, again, I'll just use the United States as a number, but this is not a United States problem. This is a global problem. But healthcare costs in the United States, I shared this yesterday in my seminar, that 18% of our GDP in the United States is spent on healthcare costs. 18%. The highest nation in the world next to the United States is the UK at 11%. But here's the kicker. We're not even in the top 25 of the healthiest countries in the world, and we're spending 18%. And out of the 18%, about 80% is directly related to this thing called stress. So here's what I understand about stress. Number one, it's physical. People think all the time stress is between your ears. No, it's physical. The threat might happen up here, but stress is called physical. You see a bear, what happens? That's acute stress. You run from that bear. All your hormones kick in. But that's not what's killing us in the United States. What's killing us is this chronic cortisol stimulation. Dopamine, cortisol, those things are always kicking in. And here's where I see the major problem. This is called white space. All white space is your personal time. Look at this in 1940. This is the United States, but you could use this in any country around the world. But look at our sleep. 8 hours of sleep, we work, we have survival time, take care of the kids, ourselves, whatever. And white space is these crazy things. I lost my mom in March. All my mom wanted to talk about in the last 6 months of her life was white space. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what you're going to talk about at the end of your life. This is the special things in your work, what you do with your people at work, what you do with your families and friends and things like that. That's the white space. Look at that, 5 hours, 1940. 2008, look at it start to shrinking. We're not sleeping as much. We're working more. Our survival time is about the same, but here comes screen time. I get it. We're all on screens. Again, I have a company right now. There's 10 of us in our business. It's a smaller company, but it's growing like crazy, and you can see white space is shrinking. And this is the big one that should scare us all. It scares me because you can see our sleep's going down, our work's expanding, our screen time's exploding. Ladies and gentlemen, protect your white space. Don't let it go. Don't let it go. Because at the end of your day, that's what really matters in people's lives. I know we're talking about relationships and emotions and all that stuff, but that's the good stuff right there. We're all working hard. I've never worked harder in my business, but I want to protect my white space more than ever. Okay? And last but not least, the third problem is our health's a mess. It's embarrassing. And when I say this, I'm not talking about eating perfect or exercising perfect or anything else. We just got to wake up. Here's the major problem I find in healthcare. We have no clue. We have this thing called medical illiteracy. No, more than anything else, we don't have a clue. You can go get your physical, but if those numbers come back not right, what are you going to do? We just don't know what to do. So if I gave everybody, and this is on our website, go to our website, ontargetliving.com, resources at the top, print this off, it's called Know Your Numbers. This is what you take in your physical, because this is the keys to understanding your metrics. Everybody in this room has had your cholesterol checked. I talked about this yesterday. How many of you know the number one risk factor for heart disease is called homocysteine? How many of you have had your homocysteine checked? So if you don't know what your risk is, again, if it comes back not where you want it to be, what am I going to do about it? So in medical illiteracy, we need to learn more of this stuff, ladies and gentlemen. It's not about also taking these physicals, which is great. You also need to know how to take care of yourself. And this is something you can share with your family, your clients, and your people you work with. And then if you looked at this, I shared this yesterday, you've seen this before, but you could plant anything in this. You could plant obesity, you could plant type 2 diabetes, gout, depression, anxiety, sleep, doesn't matter. In 1970, a lot of these things weren't happening. I shared this yesterday. In 1970, we had 500,000 type 2 diabetics in the United States. Today, we have 30 million. We have 50 million pre-diabetics lurking. We could have 80 million, a third of our population, or close to a third of our population in the United States be type 2 diabetics in 5 to 8 years. So you can put anything you want in this, but again, it's moving off the tracks, and it's moving quickly. So if you can see what's going on right now, this is obesity in 2000. You can see the South and the Midwest. Today we have over 30%. Tomorrow we're going to have 40%. You think we have a healthcare crisis right now? And it's a global problem. I can just talk about the United States because these are the facts I have, but it's a global problem. Last year I went to Argentina, Amsterdam, Mexico, and Hong Kong. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And you ask the question, why? It's simple. I went to Guadalajara, Mexico 5 years ago. For the first 2 years, you didn't see this stuff. And then the third year, I'm like, what is this stuff? If you've never seen this, is a Krispy Kreme donut on the top, Krispy Kreme donut on the bottom, bacon and cheese in between. This is called a Luther burger. So anybody from West Virginia, step up to the bar, here you go. So this is stuff facing us every day. I had my wife take this picture a couple years ago. She said, why do you want this? I said, have you ever seen 4 Burger King exits in a 6-mile radius? Seriously, that's in southern Michigan. And we don't move. I'm going to hit this right in the forehead. You need to start moving your body. And here's the crazy thing. You don't need to do a lot. You just need to do a little bit. How many of you have 3 to 4 minutes to move your body? I was talking to Chris earlier. One of the things, the strategies she said when she used to stock shelves is they would do a morning ritual of moving your body for 1 minute prior to the day. So why I say this is because I find more and more people think you have to exercise a lot. You don't. I'm in the Denver airport. I love telling this story. There's 2 escalators to go down, and then TSA, you get ready for the plane. I'm running a little late. There's a mob scene at the top of the escalator, and I reach over to this guy. I said, hey, what's going on with it? What's going on? He goes, the escalators are broke. I said, what? He said, escalators are broke. It's a mob scene at the top. I said, it's an escalator. It's just broke. It's a stair. Pick up your feet and walk down the stair. People start walking down the stair like, yeah, I guess I can walk. It was like a bunch of potted plants. We're so used to not moving, right? So here's what you want. If I say come in here and talk about, you need to eat better, and some of you really care about that, but most of you feel like, I want performance. I want performance in my world. I want a performance in my team. This is the key right here. These are the 3 pillars. We interviewed hundreds of people on what organizations want. Number 1, they want to have greater focus. We're so distracted. Here's a great exercise you do with your team. Next time you have a team meeting, you sit everybody down and you partner with everybody. Everybody gets a partner. And here's what you do. For 3 minutes, you don't talk. You listen. The person across from you tells you some type of story and you listen. And you will be shocked what will happen. You'll want to jump in. It's just mindfulness of that focus. So the greatest skill you can teach is not about ingenuity. It's not about leadership. It's not about sales. It's learning how to focus your attention. Directs everything. If you can get people to focus their attention on, amazing thing happens. Number 2, the greatest resource we have is not time, it's energy. We're trying to manufacture the heck out of it. You have the capacity book. Everybody got the capacity book. We have a manufactured energy scale. The number way to try to manufacture energy in the United States today is caffeine and sugar. You don't even need an ID for either one of them. And that's what's killing us right now. Energy drinks are hitting it. But we cannot manufacture energy and think you're going to not have a side effect about it. We're seeing at all-time levels of anxiety with our young kids. And it's moving into our adulthood. Depression is off the planet. I mean, it's just a crazy thing. So energy is the fuel. And last but not least is the drive. People ask me all the time, Chris, how do you get people to be motivated? It's simple. You move from an extrinsic motivation. I used to work at this large health club. I sat down with the trainers one time and I said, here's the deal. We're doing really good, but we could do a lot better. And why is that? Because we're not getting great results. People are coming in, our business is growing, but we're not getting great results. It's because we're not teaching our clients intrinsic motivation. The only time they wanted to work out or were working out was when they had a trainer. I said, you want to teach them to enjoy the process, and that's called intrinsic motivation. You don't eat right because somebody's telling you to eat right. You eat right because you want to and you enjoy the process. Same thing with movement. I had my wife, I said, hey, we're at this large health club one day, and she said, let's go to the large health club I used to work at. She said, let's get on that Stairmaster. They got those new step mills. Anybody remember the step mills? Brand new at our club. We go over there, we get on them. I look over her and I said, hey, let me ask you a question. Do you like this? She said, no, I hate it. I said, why are we doing it? Because if you hate doing it, you're not going to do it. And that's the drive that more and more people are missing. You're doing stuff because you enjoy it. And that's the key over time, is if you can improve your focus, your energy, and drive, that's the outcome, is what most people are looking for. With that being said, how do you do that? So this is your focus. This is your energy, and this is your drive. And that leads into how do you do that? You build a foundation. Atlanta Stadium, the most expensive stadium in the United States. How is it built? It's shiny, it's exciting, it's all that kind of stuff. You have these amazing facilities you're building all over the world. It starts with this. It's the foundation. So if we're talking about health as a business strategy, how do you build that foundation? You do it how you rest, how you eat, and how you move. This is the foundation right here. You don't have to get crazy with this stuff, but it needs to be on the radar screen somewhere if you want to have greater performance in your organization, because healthcare costs continue to skyrocket and capacity is shrinking. So let's start with rest. I find more and more people don't give rest enough thing. This is the key. If you're not doing this, you need to pay attention to it, because it hits you so many different ways. I find right now that we just are a little out of control because we don't get enough rest. When I work with some key performers, the first thing I talk to them about is, are you getting ample recovery? Because if you don't, the body will break down. Navy SEAL training. Most of you are familiar with Navy SEAL training. How do you get people to tap out? And they're the best in the world. If you've never seen, it's a show on Netflix, and basically it's called Selection. And what they do is they take 25 civilians, and they want to become Navy SEALs. And the number one job of the Navy SEALs, and there's one Green Beret, is they try to get them to quit. And how do they do that? They take away the rest, they don't feed them properly, and they move over-exercise them. They do it quickly. In corporate America, they don't do it quickly, they do it slowly. It's slow. But if cortisol is on all the time, cortisol is the stress hormone. If cortisol is on all the time, it will kill you. It just kills you slowly. Okay? And that's what more and more people are just not even aware of it anymore. So this guy comes to see me from Jackson National. We have these trainings, retreats. He sees me speak one time. He's 55 years old. His name's Greg Seacott. He's in your book. It's a true story. It's in your book. He comes to see me and he says, my testosterone level is about 320. And I said, okay. And he says, I'm 55 years old, I exercise like crazy, I eat right, I do all this stuff. We started talking about his rest. He wasn't getting enough rest. I said, you're not sleeping. You don't have any micro breaks during the day. One thing leads to another. We built this plan. We had selenium and zinc to his diet, pumpkin seeds, Brazil nuts, cod liver oil. We did all these things, changed how his workouts were, a little bit less intensity, focused on his sleep, got micro breaks during the day, testosterone level went up. Introduced him in their national conference, shares this story. Oh, and by the way, he didn't tell me this, but they're one of the reasons why he wanted to raise his testosterone, because he couldn't get his wife pregnant. And now he has 2 beautiful babies, and he's sharing this story up on stage in front of hundreds of people. That's the magic out there, because if we're not getting enough rest, the body will break down. But we're looking for some magic pill, and it's not out there. It's right in front of us. And this is called polarity management. So you might even take a note on this. This is when you find, again, we're working hard. But if you're working hard all the time and you're not getting enough recovery, you just need to be aware of that. You might kill yourself for a couple weeks, but then you need to have recovery. Or if you're having too much recovery, then business starts falling apart. So it's the balance, the ebb and flow, because there's no such thing as work-life balance. It's a flow. You just need to be aware of it. So put this somewhere. This is in your book. Put it somewhere and just remind you that I need to have a little bit more balance, and it's never in balance. It's always an up and down flow. Now, how many of you are familiar with slow TV? In Norway, it was fascinating to me. The number one watched public broadcasting is slow TV. If you've never seen this, it's fascinating. But the first episode was this train that took 7 hours. There's no commercials, there's no breaks, and it's the number one watched show in Norway. Over 2 million people watched the slow TV. Can you imagine doing that in the United States? And then the other one came out, they were watching fishing. They were fishing, and they didn't catch a fish for the first 3 hours. And the craziest one of all is a boat trip down one of these rivers that took 5 days. Can you imagine watching TV for 5 consecutive days? Why? Because it quiets the brain, being more mindful. When you think of mindful, all mindfulness is focusing your attention to how to relax the brain. We don't give our brains enough time to relax. That's the problem. So again, that's why I believe slow TV. You know, I was doing a podcast a couple weeks ago with my daughter, and I opened it up with looking at the clouds. I remember my mom would take me out back in the yard when I was 8 or 9 years old, and we lay on a blanket and we look up at the clouds. It was a way to quiet my mind. Some of you are thinking, this guy has no clue what I do. There's no way I could do that. But if you can give yourself a little bit of space throughout the day where you can actually quiet the mind, away we go. And here's how you do it. This is the first one. So for this, it's called diaphragmatic breathing or belly breathing. I need you to sit up straight. This is 27 seconds. All I want you to do is close your eyes, or you can watch the screen, breathe only through your nose, and just feel the breath. So as you take a deep breath in, the belly goes out. When you exhale, the belly comes back in. So on the back of your handout, you'll see a couple things, kind of summary. And you might say to yourself, you know what? I want to teach this to my team. Because you know if you're teaching something, you're practicing it. So you might teach your team that says, okay, I'm going to do a belly break, a micro break during the day, maybe twice a day for 30 seconds. That was 26 seconds. And it quiets the brain, which helps you create that focus. Number 2 is sleeping. We're not sleeping. It's a problem. We know that. How do I improve my sleep? Here it is right here. You don't do this before you go to bed. That's it. That's the big one right there. Because anytime you look at your electronics prior to bed, your cortisol levels go up and your melatonin goes down. This is the number one thing I work with people on, is that you have electronic break. It might be 9 o'clock at night, whatever, but it can't be right before you go to bed, because cortisol levels go up and melatonin goes down. And melatonin is the sleep hormone. This is a big one right here, ladies and gentlemen. We didn't have to worry about this. 1879, the light bulb was invented. We didn't have to worry about this back then. Now our sleep is getting compromised. If you looked at a sleep summary, number 1 is you value sleep. Number 2, if you're sleeping 6 hours, add 15 minutes to it. Add 30 minutes to it. Don't get crazy. Don't try to get 8 or 9 hours of sleep. Just add a little bit to that. When you go to bed, when you get up, that's the circadian rhythm. Create an amazing environment. This is on our website. I believe one of the best things to keep people asleep is you keep the temperature in your room to 65 degrees or less. That shuts down the nervous system that keeps the body relaxed. It's science, ladies and gentlemen. It's called the sympathetic nervous system. It shuts it down. The parasympathetic system that relaxes the body comes up. And then you add magnesium. Chris, I get to sleep, I can't stay asleep. You're probably deficient in magnesium. Not magnesium supplements, but magnesium foods, Epsom salt baths. You have all this stuff in your stores. So again, when I eat foods high in magnesium, again, this is on the website. Magnesium is a mineral relaxation. It helps with headaches. It helps with your blood pressure. It helps with your heart, and it helps you stay asleep. So people are like, I can't stay asleep. Your adrenals are shot. You need magnesium to help you relax. And last but not least, just shut down the screen time a little bit. You don't have to get crazy with it. You're just shutting it down a little bit. If you said optimal performance, if I was working with each one of your teams, this is what I would tell you. You need to have 2 micro breaks in the morning before lunch. You need to have 2 micro breaks in the afternoon. What is a micro break? It's as simple as this. You do stretching for about 15 to 30 seconds because motion creates positive emotion. It helps energy, okay? Some real twisting. Number 2, you get up dog, down dog, real simple stuff. And then we focus on breath. That's a micro break. That's simple. So how many of you have in your businesses, you could teach this maybe 1 to 2 minutes each micro break during the day because people, you want to have them more engaged because you're doing a heck of a job already. But the key is as your workforce ages, you need to take care of the workforce along the way, and that's optimal performance. And last thing I shared with you earlier, I talked about white space. These are just some quick examples. So this just helps people to say, okay, what can I do to kind of slow things down a little bit? Just taking a hot shower at night, a micro break. So last year, I'm in Hong Kong and I'm flying back to Michigan. So I fly Hong Kong to Seoul, Seoul to Seattle, Seattle back to Detroit. Everybody's melting down, long week, we're tired, we're exhausted. Full week, I'm working with AT&T, full week, everybody's tired. So we get into Seoul, Korea, we're delayed out of Hong Kong, and now we're late. We're missing our flight. Everybody in our group is melting down, they're all upset. We drop off in Seoul, Korea, in the airport at 4 a.m., the airport's closed, everybody's a mess. So I look around and I see you can get a massage at 6 a.m. They open up, the spa opens at 6 a.m. I go over there at 6 a.m. I said, hey, can you get me in? My flight's leaving at 11 o'clock. Can you get me in? She goes, sure, we can get you in. I had a 90-minute massage in Seoul, Korea. Then I took a hot and cold shower. I got out. I was like feeling amazing. It's 10 o'clock in the morning. We're getting on the flight. Everybody goes, why are you so happy? I go, because I feel awesome. What did you do differently than, were you taking some kind of drugs or something? Were you drinking in the bar? What were you doing? I said, I got a massage. I had a micro break. If you think about nutrition, I'm going to just pare it down for you really simple. It's blocking and tackling. It's nothing fancy. Number 1, understanding the source. Where does it come from? Don't have to read a label. You guys are the best at this. You have the highest quality. You have the Kirkland brand. You have the whole deal. But it really gets back to the source. Where does it come from? The closer it gets to the source, the better it is for you. This is sugar cane. Sugar's not a bad thing, but when we process it, that becomes an issue. Just remember, get closer to the source, away we go. Hydration, how much water am I drinking? I find more and more people, this is the missing link. They're just not drinking enough water. And if you could space your water out throughout the day, you have coconut water at your place, ginger tea, add a lemon or lime to your water, makes your water more alkaline, creates digestive health, because again, we're having digestive health epidemics. We're not eating the right foods, we're not drinking the right foods. And then from here, we go into upgrading. If you said, okay, Chris, I'm going to come work with you. We do training retreats. We have building our new headquarters right now. We have training retreats. First thing we do is hydration, followed by superfoods. Superfoods could be anything in the center of the green target. So it could be spirulina corella. It's one of my number 1 superfoods. Everybody in your teams could do it. It's 25 cents a day. It's a multivitamin on steroids. It cleanses the body, it builds your immune system. It's easy, comes in a pill form. We get ours from Taiwan. It's a great source. 25 cents a day. Don't chew the tablets. You chew them once, you won't chew them again. How many are doing the spirulina corella today? Okay. Just a handful. This is such an easy thing to say, okay, I can start doing that. And make sure you're not taking more than 10 tablets a day for the first few weeks because it's a natural cleanser. It cleans the body, okay? So I don't get an email saying, hey, I've got an issue. I'm telling you, just slowly build up, okay? The other one I'm a big fan is wheatgrass, because wheatgrass is grown in the ground for 5 months. We get ours from Canada, and basically it's high in minerals. Omega-3 fats, cod liver oil, flax, chia, hemp seeds, fruits and vegetables, these are all basically called superfoods. And last but not least, start upgrading what you're doing. Your whole business is centered around this. You don't have tons of SKUs. You just have a few focus SKUs. But you have the highest quality, the greatest value. That's what we're looking at. So again, think about what your breakfast looks like, what your dinner looks like. How can I make slow upgrades? And am I planning it all? Okay? And last but not least, timing. We were talking about this yesterday. Try to go 12 hours without eating. If you've eaten at 7 p.m., don't eat again until 7 a.m. It allows the body to clean itself. One of the best things for digestive health is allowing the body to clean itself for 12 hours. And once a week, I try to go 14 to 16 hours where I don't eat. It allows my body to clean itself. Once I start eating, I eat every 3 to 4 hours. And that's the magic here of how you eat. And again, this is all on our website. Gives you more resources. We have tons of videos on this stuff. And last but not least is movement. If you could put movement in a bottle, it would be the most prescribed medication on the planet. The number one benefit of movement is what? What's the number one benefit? It's what it does for your brain. It washes the brain. You ever heard this before? Move the body, quiet the mind. Move the body, quiet the mind. You know, when I got you up just moving just a little bit, it's amazing how it just gets everybody to feel like, oh, wow, I feel pretty good. Okay? So movement has so many wonderful benefits, but we just believe that we need to move a lot. So number one goal I want you to understand about movement is the human body is meant to move daily. If you can move your body 2 to 3 minutes, that's the lymphatic system. You move every day. Get out of the mindset I'm working 3 days a week, 90 minutes. I want you to move your body every day, just a little bit. Number 2 is posture. Everybody sit up as straight as you can. Scoot to the end of your chair. Squeeze your inner thighs together. 95% of musculoskeletal problems is body alignment. Rotator cuff, back problems, neck issues, knee, ankle, hip, it's body alignment. Go right to our website. You can see all these different videos. They're 1 minute length. This is the posture right now. I'm squeezing my inner thighs together. So everybody squeeze their inner thighs together. Then I want you to squeeze your rear end tight. Then take your index finger, put it right in your navel, and draw your navel up and in. This is called the transverse abdominis. This is the strongest muscle in your core right here. So every day, inner thighs tight, navel's up and in, pace that. That's contracting this thing called the core, okay? All right, relax for a second. Oof, that's hard. Oof. Well, let's try it again. Inner thighs tight, navel up and in, chest is up. Great exercise you do with your team. It's amazing when I look around this big room that how your posture looks amazing. My chest is up, my shoulders are down. I'm in the grocery store years ago with my daughter, Kristen. Inner thighs are tight, navel's up and in. She said, Dad, what are you doing? I said, I'm working on my pelvic floor. She said, get away from me. So we always can be working on our posture and alignment. One of the greatest exercises I can share with you is called a wall extension. You put your feet against the wall, heels against the wall, butt, and all you do is raise your arms overhead and you do this right against the wall. So when I'm getting ready for an air flight tomorrow morning, back from Seattle to Detroit, again, I'm working on these posture things, easy to do, it takes seconds. So again, when the ears lined up to the shoulder, the hip, the knee, and the ankle, the human body sings. As we age, what do we lose the quickest? We lose flexibility. Ladies and gentlemen, start working on your flexibility. If you can work on your ankle flexibility, 30 seconds once a day. Work on your back flexibility. These are easy things to do that do not take any time. They just need to take a little practice. Okay? And last but not least is play. Now, how many of you have a Costco mini trampoline? Why do I like the Costco mini trampoline? Because it's nylon and it's deep and it's safe. Put these in your break room. Get 2 of them. Get on the mini trampoline. You'll be shocked. Your team will be on that for 30 seconds. Why? Because it works your lymphatic system. Anytime the body has any movement with the upper body and movement up and down, that's your lymphatic system, and that's the sewer system of the body. The lymphatic system has no pump. If you want to clean the body, you have to move it. That's why I'm a big fan of moving your body every day. And the last movement piece I want to share with you is this thing called play. We're not playing as a society. How many of you ever played pickleball? It's going crazy with the over 50 population. I go outside, we have 8 courts at this club, and many times I'll just go out there and sit. And when you go out there and sit, what do you hear? You hear laughter, you hear passion, you hear energy. People are having fun. So a lot of times when people think about movement, they don't think about this fun factor. If you don't like what you're doing, you're not going to do it. That's external motivation, not going to work. You got to enjoy what you're doing. Now, you might do some exercise to help you play better. I love golf. I want to keep my flexibility. I like to play pickleball, I play paddleball, I like to snow ski. These are things I try to train for, but I also want to have more and more play. So this is kind of what it looks like here. Imagine in your work right now that you're going to get your whole entire team to move their body for 1 minute every day. Sometime they come in, you're going to maybe, or at a team meeting, whatever, but you're going to get this thing called dynamic warm-up, just moving your body, okay? And then foundation exercise or group of yoga poses that take about 5 minutes. You might take 1 or 2. You watch these things, this is called a centering squat. Everybody in this room, when the inner thighs are together and the hips are nice and tight, this takes less pressure off the knees. So when I'm doing an inner thigh centering squat, it's a lot less pressure on my joints. And you might just say, oh, I can do that. Because everybody has to do what? They all have to get on the toilet, right? Guy's just an idiot. What's he talking about now? And cardio, you just saw it. I just said 30 seconds to a minute. You need to find activities you enjoy, but you don't need to spend all this time and energy I was in the workout place at the hotel today. What does everybody do when they walk in? Cardio. And then they do all their stuff. It's like, okay, I understand that, but you don't need to spend all that time. And strength training is the fountain of youth and get that flexibility going. So as I close this down, I want you to think about at the top, what do you truly want? These are the outcomes at the top. My focus. I'd like to have better focus. I need to quiet my mind. If I can focus my attention, that's an amazing skill, but it has to be practiced. We have a mindful podcast. Check it out, On to Our Living podcast. Whole podcast is on mindfulness. When I travel, I don't talk. I'll say hi, I'll say hello, I'll answer people, but for the entire practice, it's a practice I've learned. When I travel, I don't talk. I'll smile and do all that kind of stuff, but it's mindfulness. Energy. I am so adamant about my energy. I got to get an amazing night's sleep last night. I get a massage tomorrow, this afternoon. These are things that you, again, don't have to be crazy here, but you want to know how do you build your energy and protect it. And last but not least, how do you stay motivated? That's that purpose. You change people's lives every day, and sometimes you don't even know it. But the foundation is how we rest, how we eat, and how we move. Now, how many of you are familiar with martial arts? I think everybody's heard of martial arts before, but nobody in this audience is born as a black belt. We're all born as white belts or green belts. We have to build it. Capacity is not innate. We have to build it. LeBron James is superhuman basketball player, but he realizes he has to spend $1.5 million a year on building his capacity. Adriana Huffington, doesn't matter who you look at over and over, all athletes, whatever, corporate America now is understanding that health is a business strategy because the key is potential. You have one of the fastest growing organizations on the planet, one of the most successful on the planet. Again, you want to keep that going, and again, their greatest resource is you and the people you train every day. And that's that potential you're looking for. So with that, we have about 5 minutes for questions, and then I'll close it down. So anybody have any questions, and I will repeat the question so you can hear it. So if anybody has a question, please raise their hand. Any questions? No questions? Yes? Yes. So the question is, how do you feel about the ketogenic diet? I'm glad you asked. I spent a week writing an article on the ketogenic diet. So it's on our website. I spent a lot of time. It's very vibrant. So here's the take on the ketogenic diet. I go back in time. I've been doing this a long time. I'm 61 years old. I've competed in bodybuilding over 12 times since 1985. All the bodybuilding diets are the ketogenic diet. You're trying to get into ketosis. My first bodybuilding contest in 1985, I got into ketosis. I was absolutely chiseled on stage. I felt amazingly bad. Hey, you look great. Yeah, I feel crummy. Your hair's Getting thin. Yep, my hair is kind of falling out. Minerals are depleted. My breath smells like ketosis because that's what it is, bad breath. Ketones are now being used. I have severe constipation, but man, look at me, I look good, right? So the problem with the ketogenic diet is that if you take a macronutrient out of your diet, a carbohydrate, protein, or fat, you'll have a macro problem. So for example, most people in this audience look at carbs as they might cause you to gain weight. When reality is that you are one of the best promoters of ancient grains. Ancient grains, oats, amaranth, teff, these are calming minerals. If you take them out of the diet, you will not have a good brain. And that's what we're seeing with a ketogenic diet. People are losing weight, getting fit looking, but they're having problems with the brain. They have amazing focus because their dopamine and their adrenaline are always on, but their serotonin and GABA are off. So that's what I talk about in the ketogenic article because I went into the weeds. I talked about respiratory quotient. You will look good, you will have this, but you'll have problems sleeping, you'll be anxious, the list goes on because you take a macronutrient out of the diet, and the ketogenic diet, for those of you who do not know, it's a high-fat, low-carb diet. Okay? How did the high-fat, low-carb, how did the high-carb, low-fat diet work in the 80s? It was horrible. You could eat the Snackwell cookies, you could eat the Entenmann's, and then we got into the whole, Atkins high protein, low carb. Now we're having all these issues. So when you take these out of the human body, fruits clean the body, you're going to have macro problems. So if you're interested in the ketogenic diet, which is the #1 diet program on the planet today, I wrote an article about it. We had 25,000 openings in the first 2 hours. People were really adamant about learning more about the ketogenic diet, and I take them all the way into the weeds and help them understand. But part of that diet is it's focus. That's why diets work, because it's a focus for a short period of time, but you can't sustain it. Okay? Also, I have a couple books to give away, so feel free to jump in and grab one of the books when we're done. Okay? Any other questions? Now I'm bribing people. Okay, I want a question here.
Hi, my name is Ruben Colin. I'm assistant manager. What do you think of doing exercise at night? Is it good?
Well, the thing about exercise is the body's meant to move. But just remember, if I exercise later in the evening and I'm trying to get to sleep, it might kind of compromise my sleep. But the key in movement is planning your day. You have a big job in your organization. You have to plan your day. So to me, maybe exercise or maybe planned exercise is something you only have time for in the evening. You have to play around with that. For me personally, it keeps me awake. So once in a while I go play and whatever, but I find it takes me time to wind down later on. So whatever works for you, again, it gets back to your lifestyle. If you guys were looking at this at the very end today, the back of your handout, what I really want you to think about is what 1 or 2 things do you want to circle? So think about this focus, energy, and drive at the top, but underneath, what pillar of resting, eating, and moving? Because if you don't circle something, nothing's going to change. And that's the magic here. Let's go with one more question. Yeah, so the question is, what's the biggest contributor to pre-diabetes? Here's diabetes, ladies and gentlemen. You have type 1 diabetes, you don't produce insulin. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about type 2 diabetes is the insulin's being produced, but the insulin is not being used correctly. And why is that? That's the question. It's because the cell is too stiff and rigid. So insulin tries to come to the cell and open up the cell to be fed, but it's too stiff. It's like a door that has a rusty lock. So the #1 thing for diabetes is you have to educate people about the cell, making the cell membrane soft. How do you do that? Water intake, just daily movement a little bit, and then omega-3 fats. So walnuts and flax seeds and chia seeds, and the list goes on. You have to get those in. And I have had hundreds of people get out of type 2 diabetes, #1, prevent type 2 diabetes, and then get into the cholesterol. They're kind of in the same venue. But if you're feeling like you've got type 2 diabetes in your family, it's one of the fastest ways to age the human body is type 2 diabetes. And it's basically costing us about $11,000 a year per diabetic. It's breaking the bank. Okay? Go ahead. You had a question? So the question is, what 1 or 2 supplements, if you had to choose, would you get for the maximum benefits? It's a no-brainer for me. #1 is spirulina chlorella. Why? It's easy and it's cheap. And the value is super high. That sounds like a Costco thing, isn't it? It's easy, it's cheap, but the value is off the charts because it boosts my immune system. So for me, that's number one. Number two is some form of omega-3 fat. The two things we're missing in our world is chlorophyll, which is greens, omega-3 fats. We know right now they put omega-3 fats in infant formula. Why? For brain development. Two diseases most people are afraid of is Alzheimer's and cancer. If you can get people to do omega-3 fats, you are, because the brain is basically made out of two substances, is water and fat. So that's where the omega-3 fats come in. And my third one is wheatgrass, because wheatgrass is the highest source of minerals. So if I'm walking down this line, I'm going, okay, we're going to first do water, then we're going to do spirulina chlorella, we're going to do omega-3 fats, and then we're going to bring in the wheatgrass. And when I get people to do that foundation, it's magical on what happens to their health. It takes right off. Anybody got one more question? Go ahead. Right, last one in the back.
What is the maximum amount of sodium that you should use in your body per day?
So one of the things I never do personally, I never count calories. Never. I'm aware of calories, but we all know calorie in versus a calorie out. This is what you do for a living. You have higher quality. So that's another one. So when I think about, get questions about the sodium, I never ever think about sodium because if I eat closer to the source, I never have to worry about it. If I get a can of Campbell's soup, we know that's got 900 milligrams of sodium. That's processed, you know? So the goal is you try to eat close to the source, and when you do that, you don't have to worry about the sodium or all these other things that are going to happen. One of the best things, if anybody in this audience has high blood pressure, you get magnesium in your diet. Ancient grains, cacao, figs, raisins, all these things are high in magnesium. The other thing, if you want to have amazing blood pressure, you start consuming celery. Celery is the highest source of sodium on the planet, but it's the real sodium. So when I'm traveling, I'm flying, the first thing I take with me is carrots and celery because it helps with edema, it helps with swelling, it helps with my blood pressure. So you don't have to worry about the sodium if you're eating closer to the source. Okay? So I'll wrap it up. A couple things here I want to make sure you understand. Number one, you have to make mistakes. You got to make mistakes. So if you look at the back here and you think, hey, I got this down, you need to experiment, make it your own. You have to make mistakes. I was training this guy years ago. His name was Lou Brandt, executive at this printing company, 75 years old. This guy was a tough guy. I love this man to death. I love this guy. And he said to me one day, hey, he said, you know, Chris, my energy level's not great. I eat about noon and I don't eat until 9 o'clock at night. Got all these meetings, blah, blah, blah. I just don't have any energy. What should I do? I said, why don't you make a smoothie? Everybody can do this in your group. Pack your smoothie. You could have somebody make it at work, whatever, but you pack it. What do I put in it? Okay, here we go. I want you to take 3 cups of water. I want you to take 3 tablespoons of hemp seeds. You have this at your buildings. I want you to put some spinach in there, some bananas, frozen fruit. The list goes on. He's all excited. Comes back the next day. That was the nastiest smoothie I've ever had. I go, Lou, tell me. What did you do? He goes, I made it exactly like you said. I put 3 cups of water. I put 3 cups of hemp seeds. I said, Lou, 3 tablespoons. You put in 3 cups? Was I not supposed to? I go, no, 3 tablespoons, Lou, you missed the point. I said, what was it like to drink that? He goes, it was like mud. I said, Lou, it was mud. So you have to make mistakes because people say all the time, it didn't work the first time. Nothing works the first time. You got to play around with it, do all that kind of stuff. The last thing I want to make sure is I want you to walk out of here not climbing Mount Everest. Don't climb it. It's not going to work. I've been doing this my whole life. 33 years now in this business. It doesn't work. You have to climb one baby thing at a time. And last but not least, you need to understand and how to enjoy the journey. This is a journey, ladies and gentlemen. You change lives every day. Because if you think about this, as you build your capacity, and this is where I'm ending today. Captain Sully, we're all familiar with Captain Sully. I have a couple of buddies of mine that are pilots. I said, could you have landed that plane on the Hudson? And they said, no way. I don't have the capacity to fly that plane and land it. Tell me more about that. You know, Captain Sully was a fighter pilot. Captain Sully was a glider pilot. He understood G-force, he understood no force. And so at that day, at that time, he had that capacity to use everything in his power, his potential, to land that plane in the Hudson. Saved 158 people. Okay? So that's what I want to think about today. As you build your capacity, it's not innate, you have to build it. Because as you build your capacity, you will have the ability to do more. You'll have the ability to have more. And I'm not saying have more from a personal standpoint. I'm talking about have more in your life. More relationships, more friendships, more energy, all that kind of stuff. And last but not least, you have the ability to give more. Because that's what you do every day is you give. You give and you give and you give. You're changing lives every day. I want to make sure everybody understands that. But you're needed, and that's what sometimes people think. You know that I'm too busy. No, you're not too busy. You're not too busy. So I'll end with that. I wish everybody health and happiness. I truly appreciate the opportunity. Again, good luck to everybody. Have a wonderful conference. Thanks for having me.